I mean, I'm no expert or nothing, but I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be something in here. I mean, this is it. Paid $500 for it, knowing I might have needed some motor work, and well, wasn't too worried about the factory motor as I was gonna put that Coyote in it. So I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll get a little bit of money out of it, selling some stuff off, and haven't just scrapped the old motor. You know, she's a little beat. I'm probably gonna try and find another door in the junkyard. I mean, that door still opens. This one, for whatever reason, does not open. So even for a $500 car, I mean, the carpets could use a little shampooing. The only thing I've done to it really is just taking a shot back to it, try to clean some of it up. But for a 2000, with, I want to say it's 100 and, well, I'd have to hook the battery back up. It's like 180,000, 190,000 on it. Interior's pretty clean. Leather's not in terrible shape. Could probably use a little bit of like saddle soap, help try to rejuvenate it a bit. But for overall, for what I'm gonna do with it, it'll be fine. Because really, all I want this car to be is a fun driver. Really, I'm not looking to win no car shows with it or nothing. So I just want something I can have fun daily driving instead of my Fummins. And when the weather is not good enough to ride my motorcycle, I have this that gets, you know, that doesn't weigh 8,500 pounds, and it'll be fun to. I mean, overall, it's, you know, not in terrible shape. There's some stuff on the suspension I'll have to replace once the new drivetrain's in. But looking at it, the single bolt mounts here and here might actually be able to almost work off the 3.9 on the Coyote width-wise. What I might have to do is, because I kept that's the one thing I did keep off the other motor, was the stock mounts and the bolts. So worst come to worst, what I can do is basically build adapter plates so I can still run the factory Lincoln mounts, but bolted to the side of that Coyote. So we will see. Alright, so what we're going to try to do right now was, because this motor has piston cooling jets, before I can go through and, excuse me, run the hone through the motor, I need to get those out of the way. So that way I don't smack with the hone going down through the cylinders. So we're going to go ahead and roll the motor over on the stand. And it looks like so 10 mil. Let's see. It looks like it wants it to be something you remove the crank out for, but I'm currently not about that. So let's see. Because I don't want to. This was an out. Yeah, guess I'm gonna have to pull the crank. This is. Alright, so unless I think so, this motor, pardon for the blockage. So it looks like 1, 2, so basically 4 10mm hold downs is what keeps the piston cooling jets in place on this your Coyote. So basically, yeah, looks like I'm gonna have to take the crank out to be able to get to those. I really don't want to do that because I didn't buy crank bearings, and I'd really rather not. This motor ran fine other than a cylinder 8 misfire, so really don't want to open a can of worms if I don't have to open a can of worms. So let's see. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Alright, so what I figured out I'm going to try and do, because the way the crankshaft is built, I'm just going to try and bar the motor over in hopes that I will actually open up a spot that with a 10mm swivel, I'll be able to get that bolt out. So as long as I get the socket on it, I'll be able to put a swivel, then I can pull those out and I can leave the crank in place without messing with it. So, and I actually just seen it. Hold on. So what I'm trying to do, most of my tools are from the old Harbor Freight. I happen to have these here swivel extensions. I'm going to try and do it where I can. Take that off. Try and see if I can't sneak the socket on the swivel, on this pair of swivel extensions over in such a way that it allows me to make full contact. Like that. So take a look at it down there, probably a little bit difficult to see, but that one 10 mil bolt down there. Not torqued to a super high specification, but enough to get it loose. Send this one back here. I'm not so much worried about bumping into the crank right there as it is not the bearing surface. Even this one has plenty of lubrication on it, so I'm not worried about it either. So knocking into the sides of it is not going to be nothing tragic to it, as it sees a lot of load in comparison to what I'm doing to it currently. So I have 1, 2, and then 3, 4 all broke loose. So I'm going to go ahead and spin the motor around, give myself a little bit of room to grab. Basically spin those bolts out by hand. Sorry, this is a little bit slow. Happened to Like, while I can look at my fingers, it's not the most easiest thing to reach your hand into. So that bolt is out. Let's go ahead and set this right about here, so. Roll this over a little bit. I think it's smacking on the crank. There it goes. So this right here with this 10 millimeter headed bolt looks probably about a M6 M7 size thread. This right here is the piston cooling jets. So the job of these is to distribute oil from the oil gallery in the crank to the underside of the pistons to try to keep them cool. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull the other 3 out. So it only has 4 in this motor. Because they're in pairs for the 8 cylinders. Motors like my 12 valve that's in my Fummins has 6 individual cooling jets. They're actually in the crank journals of the block and pointed up towards the piston, so it has actual 6 of them. Whereas this motor, for example, which actually I can spin the crank by hand, it divides the work up. So there isn't 8 individual ports through the crank's oiling journal. There's only 4, and it divides them out. I'm going to do some research. I actually might go ahead and delete these. As I want to say model year 13 Mustang, they deleted them as the engineers figured out that they were not necessary. But, I mean, I'm not looking to make gobs amount of power with the motor. I mean, I'd be good with 550 wheel with it. So that being said, not too worried about them. To me, it's a reliability thing because I do want to just drive the car with this motor. I want to be able to, on a whim. My brother and I, our current goal, we tell ourselves next year, so this is 2019, we tell ourselves 2020 we're going to do Rocky Mountain Race Week. We want to do that, but the chances of us actually pulling it off are not as strong. Yeah, sure, I might have this car running, driving. By that time, maybe it just depends on what other problems come up with and such. Between now and then, I still have to get a transmission, a converter, and the biggest ticket item of all of that is going to be the engine management, transmission management system. My current plan is just get a 470 out of a Crown Vic Grand Marquis and just run it for now. Cause I want the car to run, and then from there, if I start grenading gear, having gear slippage, and then from there I will build it up. Because I've been sitting on this motor for September. Sitting on this motor since probably almost a year, probably. Yeah, about a year. So I've been sitting on this motor a year. Well, at least somewhat close to it. I have to go back and look. I think I bought the car that this was going to go into before I paid for the motor. So about the car, I'm not sure, I want to say. So yeah, been sitting on this thing for a minute. I want to finally try not to set on projects for multiple years at a time. I mean, sure, if projects need improvement, then that's no big deal, but I want to get it growing. So let's go ahead and roll her back over. So because of how I have the bolts for the engine stand, I kind of have to bring the motor forward just slightly before it'll roll over, because I put the nuts on this side, which for this motor, because I'm rolling it back and forth, I probably should have actually put the nuts towards the block and the bolt head on this side, and then I'd be able to spin it freely with no issue. So for now, I got the piston cooling jets out. I'm going to dig out wherever my hone is. I'm pretty sure I looked right at it not long ago. I'm going to go get my drill battery, get it put on the charger. So hopefully tomorrow, midday-ish, I'm going to go ahead and figure out what method that I want to use. Because I've seen some folks that, dip the hone in motor oil, run it through, and then I've seen some folks that spray, like WD-40, something of the like, down the holes, and then run the hone back and forth. So I'm going to figure out what approach I want to take to that. Once I figure that out, I'll go ahead and hone it all out. Then from there, I'll get my set of rings that I bought for those pistons that are, obviously I had the one that was broken. I had actually one that had dropped and had like a little ding in it that probably would have been okay. But because I was already replacing one, I didn't want to buy like 2 or 3 individual pistons. I went ahead and bought an entire set of 8 seal power pistons off of Rock Auto. Because I bought all, if I'm short of actually sending this block to a machine shop, trying to do this, as budget as possible, but not fully sending it off. So, gonna go ahead and just run once I figure out what method I want to do with the hone, get everything honed out. After I do that, then I'll get the rings out and the feeler gauges, figure out, based on what factory spec for the rings are, where do I want to set them depending on what I might do with the motor later on. This motor came out of a car that at one point had a Pro Charger, so the timing cover for the motor is shaved. But I don't know if I want to go back to a Pro Charger. Down the way, currently I just want to get this assembled in the car, get transmission sourced and all that. Basically I just want to get the car running NA for now, and then from there I will play with E85. Because where I live currently, I'm 30 miles, I think, from an E85 station. So I would have to very precisely plan out my drives on pump E85, so to speak. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all for, we'll probably say, this video. Next video should be more stuff with the Coyote. Might be some stuff with the Fummins. It'll be probably more time-lapse-ish stuff. I want to try to go through and actually say, hey, this is how I'm doing this. This is why, based on whoever it is I learned it from, watched it from, kind of thing. So, trying to be as instructional with this swap as possible. My brother is going to try to capture some of this for his channel as well. So I don't want to try to like step in his toes so much. I mean, it is my swap, but I want a different level of documentation. And because I am building this out, that is some stuff that he won't catch in his content. So trying to make sure we get a full picture for whoever may eventually down the road want to do this type of swap. Because, yeah, sure, I am using a Coyote, because that's what I happened to fall into. But a Coyote is still a mod motor Ford. I know there are some out there on the forums for Lincoln LSs that are mod motor swapped. There is an LS swapped Lincoln LS, which me and my brother joked about. It's like, well, we just go find an old LS and LS swap the LS. But I had already committed to picking up this Coyote. Dumped a few more coins into it than I was originally thinking I was going to for this swap. But, project cars, they're never exactly what you plan on. So, but yeah, until next time, carry into it.